This happened in the year 1990. There was a wealthy family, though not in the best state due to the parent separation. They had an only child whom we'll call Alric, not his real name. They lived a life of luxury, well known and wealthy in their community. Alric lived with his mother, who indulged him with every luxury. However, when his father left, Alric began to rebel against his mother. He started hanging out with friends, getting involved in every vice imaginable, including drugs. One day, desperately seeking money from his mother, who knew too well of his addictions, she refused him. This angered Alric. He lashed out with harsh and thoughtless words, silently breaking his mother's heart. In his rage, he took a deed to a portion of their land, sold it, and squandered the money on his lavish lifestyle. After a week, he returned home, where his mother, who had missed him dearly, eagerly welcomed him with open arms, asking nothing but what had happened to him. Alric, however, remained silent and retreated to his room. The next day, Alric went out again with his friends, coming home drunk. His patient mother waited for him, and when he asked for money again, she suggested he rest instead, noting the late hour, which only irritated him further. That night, Alric snuck out to enjoy time with his friends, but an unexpected tragedy struck. Their house caught fire. The household staff and his mother managed to escape, but thinking Alric was still inside, his mother bravely but futilely re-entered the burning house, a decision that cost her life. By the time the firefighters arrived, it was too late, and alongside their house, Alric's mother perished. Learning of his mother's fate devastated Alric, enveloping him in sorrow and guilt. He blamed himself, unable to accept the grim reality of his loss. Drowning in grief, he engaged in daily bouts of drinking and fighting, constantly berating himself as worthless, seeking punishment for his perceived failures. Then, one night, after leaving a bar, a speeding car headed straight for him. In his drunken state, he couldn't avoid it, but a sudden cold breeze and the sensation of being embraced mysteriously diverted the danger. Regaining his senses, he heard a whisper, "Take care, my child," which moved him to tears. "Thank you, Mom," he whispered back, breaking down. Days later, he dreamt of his mother bidding farewell, urging him not to blame himself, for she had only done her duty as a mother. She apologized for any shortcomings and professed her unconditional love, encouraging him to live on and find happiness, assuring him of her continued love and guidance. Waking up with tears and spotting a white butterfly on a photo of him and his mother, which soon flew away, he cried, thanking his mother for everything. He lived as she advised, completed his education, managed their family business, and eventually built his own family, never forgetting the life lessons he had learned. The love of a mother for her child is incomparable. P.S. Alric became a successful businessman and an active member of a child welfare organization. And how do I know his story? I'm his son, and he always told me about how great my grandmother was. So, there you have it. I have a friend who has never met his mother since birth. He has no idea where his mother is. All this time, he has been able to find everyone he searched for, but he couldn't find his own mother. Let's call my friend Vlad. So Vlad's wife, Marie, asked me a favor if I could read Vlad regarding his mother. When I saw the death card, I immediately felt his low energy, and the card indicated a very sad life and a tragic past. It showed that he suffered from illness and hardship during his youth. So I told Marie that Vlad's mother was no longer alive based on my tarot cards. Marie asked me if Vlad's mother was near or far away. I started shuffling the cards and asked my tarot again. It showed that she was far away, across the sea. I asked Marie to search for Vlad's mother's surname and find someone who was willing to help us out. Our reading continued, and it lasted for 4 months of searching. Finally, we had a conversation with someone who validated that Vlad's mother had passed away. She had been living somewhere in the Visayas. Since my family is near that province, I asked my uncle to search for Vlad's mother's name in churches and cemeteries. Unfortunately, he couldn't find anything despite visiting all the churches and cemeteries. I asked my tarot once again how he could find her. My tarot answered that a married couple would help my uncle find her grave. I asked my uncle not to stop searching until one day he ended up in a village. Inside the church, he asked around and spoke to an old lady. Finally, my uncle spoke to Vlad's aunt, and she was able to help my uncle along with her husband. Fast forward, Vlad's aunt narrated that Vlad's mother had schizophrenia, developed due to exposure to drugs and traumas during her youth. Her life was intense. She was once in the spotlight, incredibly beautiful in her youth. She became a victim of rape by several men, and for the sake of her survival, she escaped after giving birth to Vlad. Her life was so painful. She was left in the province, where she eventually passed away due to old age. Fortunately, she had relatives who cared for her and looked after her to some extent. Now I know her soul is at peace because her son has found her. It was a very sad and painful reunion for mother and son. Her ashes were flown here to Manila, and before she was buried, she appeared to Vlad's grandchild. The child even said she was his grandmother after seeing her picture. She was described as beautiful and elderly, wearing glasses. In 2007, my grandmother on my mother's side, whom we fondly called Ina, because that's what we, her grandchildren, used to call her along with Ama, for my grandfather on my mother's side, fell seriously ill. Ina was incredibly kind and always ready to defend us, though she could be a bit stern at times. She was known in our community as one of the best cooks whenever there was a gathering. Everyone knew her. So, she became gravely ill and needed dialysis every week. I was one of those who took care of her because we lived nearby. It was here that I witnessed how she struggled to breathe because of her illness. Each time she gasped for breath due to the tightness in her chest, it left a lasting impression on me. After several months of battling her illness, her body finally gave in, and she passed away. I still remember the moment when Ina passed away. I was asleep when my mother woke me up to break the news to me. Ina is gone. She left us, my mother told me. Since I had just woken up, I thought I was still in a dream. Okay, I replied, and went back to lying down. Little did I know that she had truly left us. It wasn't until I woke up the next day that I realized the news I had heard the night before wasn't a dream. My beloved Ina was really gone. She had left us. Several months later, after the sad event, I decided to sleep at my uncle's house. Since we didn't have a TV at that time, I had gotten used to sleeping there sometimes. There was only thin plywood between my uncle's house and my grandparents' house, and no one was in the neighboring house because my aunt had gone in, and my grandfather was on duty at the school where he worked as a guard. At 10:30 p.m., while I was watching TV and waiting for my uncle to come home from work, I suddenly heard a familiar sound coming from the neighboring house, but there was no one there yet. I listened carefully, but the sound grew louder and louder. That's when I remembered that the sound was similar to Ina's gasps when she was alive and struggling with her illness. I tried not to dwell on it, but the sound wouldn't stop. That's when I decided to just go home. I didn't wait for my uncle and just locked the door. I texted him to pick up the key at our house. At 11 o'clock p.m., I walked home, carrying my blanket and pillow. All I can say now is, wherever Ina is, I know she is at peace, free from the pain that once tormented her. I hope she guides me in my life decisions, and I love her very much. I miss Ina.